you must remember that the charge of the metal, remember that the metal cut ion 100 is equal to its group number. Sikaoda za charge yacho unongotasa group number. This is why we asked what group is the metal in the base. So in this case, our metal is in group 1, so it will have a charge of +1. Kana metal yacho iri group 2, like vana magnesium, inonoita charge of +2. Kana iri group 3, inongoita charge of +3. Asi charge ye non metal anion, taona kuti you can memorize, you can remember kuti hydroxide in a -1, sulfate in a -2 or 2-. But there's a general rule for vanana chlorine, vanana oxygen, nemamwe ari paperiodic table. Izvi hazviwanike paperiodic table. OH, SO4 na NO3 hazviwanike paperiodic table. It's a special group of anions. See, for all those metals that are found on the periodic table, for example, oxygen, for example, nitrogen, for example, chlorine itself, there's a general rule. We simply say, let me write it here, the charge or on the non-metal metal is equal to 8 minus group number. So for example, ukadaza charge ya chlorine, suppose you had forgotten, you'd look for the group number of chlorine. Chlorine is in group 7. You simply say 8 minus 7 and you get 1. And remember, it's supposed to be negative, so we say -1. But you say 8 minus the group number first, then you add the negative sign. What is the charge of oxygen? It will be, oxygen is in group 6. Ukaenda unocheka pa periodic table pako, saka takati 8 minus 6, it is O2-. Saka munhu akaziva charge iri pa metal, ndozvatikuita panapa. Then wotsvaga panapa our sulfuric acid is going to provide this sulfate. We said here sulfuric acid will provide a sulfate, hydrochloric acid will provide a chloride, whilst nitric acid will provide the nitrate. So we know that we are going to bond with the sulfate SO4. So the ratios are such that pana +1 pa charge ya sodium, pana 2-. Saka kuti tibalance sema charges iwawo, salt yedu inobuda yakadai. Let's look at the equation that is written properly. So panapa, this is what we do. So you have to remember that 2 uya angari pana sulfate ndiye anouya oiswa pana sodium. Then sodium anga ana +1, saka tikuti +1 wa sodium auya akaenda. So we are supposed to put this in brackets. SO4 wedu tomisa ma brackets tintoisa 1, but then it's not necessary. Every time there's a 1, unongonyora anion racho sezvariri. Saka 1 haanyorwe. This is why you don't see it here. We just wrote the SO4 1. So SO4 1 SO4. Those are zvikureva. Whilst panapa we need 2 ma sodiums. Saka ndokuti ma charges edu abalance, tinoda 2 ma sodium chibonda ne 1 SO4. That's the idea. So ndokufoma kwatoita salt, and then we have our water. So every time you do neutralization, there is a salt end. So this is your salt. This is the salt we wanted to form. This is my salt, and this is what? This is my water. And what do? You balance. Saka inonzi balancing the equation. Saka wagadzira salt, wagadzira water, ukakanganisa wagadzira formula panapa, haizo balance. So you start now to count kuti kunoku unema sodium mangani. You count each element one by one. So panapa, sodium, before we put the into our number, this is what we want to look at. And where are these numbers coming from? So before those numbers, you are supposed to look at it and say, andina 1 sodium panapa. Then muno formula muno mdine 2 ma sodium, because it's Na2. Saka I have to balance my sodiums. So you're not allowed to come here with like a 2 panapa. Azvibvumidzwi. Saka ndinoisira 2 kuno kuseri. This is why pana 2 aiswa hapo. So there's supposed to be a 2 here in order for me to balance my sodium. But now what happens is when you put a 2 there, this 2 is now multiplying zvese kumberi kwake, so all these elements are now multiplied by 2. So let's remember that 2 wandaisa apa akumultiply zvose zviri kumberi, saka ndane 2 masodium at the same time ndane 2 maoxygen, ndane 2 mahydrogen zvekare, because it's 2 times Na, 2 times O, 2 times H. So maoxygen ndane 2, then if I come here maoxygen angu ndine 4, so ndakuti 2 maoxygen ari pano plus 4I over ita total of 6, saka side kuno kuna total of 6 maoxygen. This side ndakuchikaunda panapa ndina 4, and then panapa initially I have a what? A 1, which is 5. So it's not balancing out. This is why we had to put a 2 kuti aite 6. So guys, a 2 wako panapa akaiswa paseri apa anobva aita 2 maoxygen I plus 4I over adzoka number ya 2 which is 6. So maoxygen yedu abalansa 6 this side, this whole side, and 6 this whole side. Now we have to continue. For my hydrogens, remember we have a 2 here and a so 2 times my hydrogens are we have 2, then plus I had 2 I 4. Then we go to this side. Since we have a 2 here multiplying H2 here, we have 4. So balance. So this is how you balance. You count each element one by one to see whether they are balanced. And unobvumirwa kuisa manamba kuseri kwema compounds ako sezvichi. You can't change the formula. Ativumidzwe kuchinja ka2 kanaka kana ka2 kana kari pana water. You can only add numbers here. You can put any number you want for as long as you balance. Okay, so it's important to learn how to balance these equations. So remember, you need to be able to create the salt first. Okay, so let's do this question. State Ohm's law. So this is electricity, under the start of electricity. You need to know that in electricity we measure the following. We measure current, which is what? The amount, you can call it the amount of electrons flowing in a circuit. So this is a correct definition for current. We also measure, so we measure current, and it's measured in amps. So the units for measuring current is amps, or you just put an A, capital letter A for amps. Then we also measure voltage. And magetsi or any voltage, any current. Voltage is another measurement unit of magetsi, which is equal to, which is it is also called potential difference, or we can say the force that pushes what? That pushes electrons through a what? Through a circuit. Through a circuit. So remember, voltage is the force that is pushing your electrons. So there's an analogy your water which is moving through pipes. So the pump is your battery, and the force that is coming from the pump is your voltage. Then the water flowing through the pipes is your current. So you can try to remember that water analogy, that battery rangu ndo pump, tambo dziri kufamba nemagetsi ndo mapipes, magetsi ari kufamba mutambo idzodzo ndo current, ndiyo yakafanana nemvura iri kufamba mumapipe. So you can try to remember this. Saka kune inonzi Ohm's law yaunofanira kuremember. Ohm's law. So we said current here na voltage. Then kune chimwe chinhu chechitatu chinonzi resistance, chiri very important. Resistance. Resistance is a force that opposes what? It's a force that opposes the movement of what? Of current, or the movement of electrons. Through a circuit. Through a circuit. So it's important to remember that kune inonzi resistance. This one is measured in ohms. So the unit for measuring resistance is ohms. Pane a special sign for ohms irapai. Those sign ima ohms. Then a voltage panaba is measured in volts. And which is denoted